What if a single mistake could reignite a star and burn half the galaxy? A probe has found a vault in deep space, a star system frozen at the instant of supernova, locked in an endless loop. Inside waits a voice, ancient and patient, begging for release. But freeing it could unleash the very catastrophe it was built to contain. Humanity must decide, preserve the prison, or risk everything to end the suffering. Would you dare to open it? Join us as we step into the vault, where mercy and survival collide. Section 1. Echoes in the Dark. Sagitta 12 had been gone for 13 years, a lean arrow of titanium and stubbornness that was meant to coast the void in silence. Its return signal was supposed to be a routine ping, confirming the probe was still awake, still whispering its quiet survey logs back toward Earth. Instead, what arrived was a correction request. Sagitta's navigation insisted that the universe was wrong, that the patch of emptiness it had been sent to cross contained mass that no charts admitted, and that time itself had lost its balance there. Controllers in Geneva assumed a malfunction until the probe kept sending more data, each packet layered over the last, sharpening a picture no one wanted to believe. The data described a star system, but one that should not exist. The central sun was frozen at the exact moment of supernova. Its shock front bloomed outward, yet utterly still, each filament of destruction locked like glass, suspended in air. Planets hung immobile, trapped in their final arcs. Even the light itself was arrested mid-flight, an impossible still life preserved in perfect fidelity. And around the system lay a shell, a vault that bent probability, bleeding seconds away from the probe's clocks. Sagitta reported the delay with mechanical calm, and then the telemetry stuttered into loops. The loops grew consistent. What should have been noise settled into rhythm. By the time the Vigilant was recalled from patrol, the story had leaked. Earth's feeds called it an alien museum, Mars muttered of weapons, and Luna's university speculated it was the signature of a failed experiment in stellar engineering. Naomi Aurora, captain of the Vigilant, read the mission packet in silence and knew what it truly was, an invitation to ruin. Yet she also knew refusal was impossible. Humanity had seen something extraordinary. That meant humanity would go. She gathered her officers in the briefing bay, the air still thick with the grease smell of new welds. Dr. Aya Chun laid the final composite into the hollow tank, the frozen bloom, sharp enough to look alive. Aya's voice was steady, but her fingers trembled on the edge of the console. If this data is true, then someone build a machine that edits causality itself, she said, and it is still running. Naomi met every eye in the room and gave the only order that mattered. We go, we look, we measure, and when we decide, we carry mercy in one hand and survival in the other. Please do press that like button if you have enjoyed this story so far. That would mean a lot to me. Now back to the story. Section 2. Approach Vector Mercy. The Echo Vault did not shine like a beacon. It soaked the starfield instead, a bruise against the infinite, a deeper darkness that made stars around it seem shy to shine. In Vigilant Science Bay, Dr. Aya Chun fed Ping trains through the perimeter and watched her equation slip, numbers sliding into nonsense. Crossing modifies the record, she murmured, drawing branching cones on her slate. If this place is a recorder, it will try to smooth us out. If it's a cage, we will feel its bars the instant we touch them. Captain Naomi Aurora stood behind her, hands locked behind her back. She opened the fleet channel so every cutter and cruiser, Terran and Martian alike, could hear the tone she meant to set. We do not go as thieves of history. We are stewards. We will witness first and only act if we must. Curiosity never outvotes lives. The words were calm, yet heavy as orders carved in stone. Engines trimmed heat. Generators bled excess static. Formations widened like a hand reaching toward water it could not judge. In docking bays, pilots strapped down everything that could rattle loose. Because superstition whispered that sound traveled in strange ways near anomalies. A Martian commander ordered old battle songs piped through headsets, the rhythm steady enough to quiet nerves. No one argued. Even rivalry folded into ritual. Aya highlighted a thinner patch in the bruise, calling it a doorway. It looked no different, yet Vigilant adjusted course toward it, sails tucked, thrusters whispering. Naomi rested her palms on the throttles, eyes steady. The navigation clock twitched, disagreed with its twin, then lost its certainty. Voices on the comms arrived early, then late, then overlapped as though time itself stuttered. Naomi let the silence grow until the crew needed her voice. Anchored to count and confirm, she ordered. If time misbehaves, our discipline will not. The hollow tank showed the frozen bloom closer now, a supernova arrested mid-breath. Petals of fire curled in glass stillness, each one a scream with no sound. The fleet drifted forward with reverence, like visitors in a cathedral who feared to wake the statues. Comms pings returned wearing ghost syllables, tones stitched with echoes that had never been sent. Aya smoothed her breathing, updating wristbands, eyes fixed but voice even. "We are seen," she said, not yet refused. Private messages flickered across consoles. Recipes traded, fragments of lullabies, reminders that mercy can be graphed only after it is built. Naomi touched the brass plaque bolted beside the bridge hatch, engraved with names of crews who had chosen duty above fear. "Witnesses," she whispered, letting the words sink into the metal. "Not conquerors." Vigilant's prow breached the threshold. Nothing shattered. Instead, a hush fell over the universe, a silence that felt surgical, the quiet of a scalpel before incision. Naomi kept thrust low and sails taut. Behind her, the flotilla matched rhythm, ships beating like one slow heart. Ahead, the vault yawned open, holding within it the last breath of a star waiting to be understood and perhaps forgiven. If you have enjoyed this story so far, then please do subscribe and hit the bell icon to listen to more stories like this one. Let's get back to the story now. Section 3. Threshold Drift. They crossed the lip of the vault like divers sliding beneath an alien sea. There was no bang, no flare, no cinematic rupture. Only a flex, a sensation as if the universe itself had briefly inhaled. The bridge lights dimmed without losing power. Then Naomi heard her own voice finish a sentence she had not yet spoken. She froze, then realized everyone else had heard it too. Across Vigilant, crew exchanged wide-eyed glances, mouths opening to check if their words were their own. The first probe they launched vanished into the dark, its beacon visible on the tactical for 3 steady blinks. Then it returned without ever turning, tumbling into its launch cradle scarred along one edge. Its casing bore coordinates etched in radiation, too regular to be chance, as though a hand of particles had written them. The probe's log insisted it had been gone for 2 hours. Ship clocks disagreed. There was no sign of where the time had gone, only the uneasy certainty that the vault had taken it. Aya Chin's boards flooded with desynchrony. Navigation clocks split by tenths, then seconds, then fractured into parallel lines. Communications arrived out of order, some from moments ago, some from moments not yet lived. "We're inside an editor," she said, fingers moving across controls as if she could stitch time back together. "It is trying to prefer a version of events where we never intruded." Naomi forced stillness into her voice. "Count confirm, correct. Anchor to what we can measure." She ordered every ship to recite position, thrust, and time code in a loop. The flotilla answered like a choir, overlapping, adjusting, weaving a human rhythm through the vault's distorted pulse. Martian co-pilots sang counter-harmonies under their breath, an old tradition against disorientation. The habit spread across the fleet, song building lattice over the chaos. A second probe returned carrying a map fragment. It revealed a ring of objects within the frozen system, evenly spaced like stones laid with ritual care. Aya rotated the projection, matching it against the etched coordinates. "They want us to see this," she whispered. "Or they want us to step where they have set a wire." Naomi studied the path, jaw tight. It could be invitation or trap. Both required courage. "We follow," she decided, "but we do not pretend the cliff isn't there." Her crew straightened at the steel in her tone. Whatever waited inside the balloon, they would face it as witnesses. Not vandals, not cowards, witnesses. Section 4. The Frozen Bloom. The system unfolded before them like a cathedral built from disaster. At its center, the dead star was a flower of fire frozen mid-bloom. Shock fronts curled in petals that would never finish unfurling. Each filament of energy hung motionless, the scream of sun captured as sculpture. Worlds orbited in silence, their surfaces cracked and charred, atmospheres caught in the act of boiling away. Even the faint tail of a comet had become a sword of ice and light, arrested in a gesture that looked almost deliberate. The flotilla slowed, reverence creeping into every voice. Then the stones awoke. At first they looked like debris, irregular fragments scattered across the bloom. But one by one they flared, shedding faint radiance at wavelengths no human eye could follow. Sentinel nodes. Aya counted them in silence, lips moving, face paling as the tally grew. "Too many," she whispered. "Hundreds at least. Possibly thousands." Fields brushed against Vigilant, polite as fingers checking pulse. Panels flickered. Distance measurements vanished, replaced by blanks where space should have been. Aya worked furiously, shaping models from the scraps of data. When she finally spoke, her voice was tight with awe and fear. "The vault isn't just holding the explosion. It's feeding on it. Phase cancellation, folding the blast into itself again and again. The sentinels are teeth, keeping the fold from tearing apart. If one fails, if enough fail, the energy returns in full." A murmur spread across the bridge, the kind that grows when people realize the ground they stand on is thinner than they believed. Naomi felt sweat bead at her temple, though the air was cool. "Then we do not test its patience," she said. "We hold distance. We learn its rhythm." Martian cruisers traced long arcs through the bloom, careful as surgeons. Terran cutters lingered nearer, mapping the nodes that hummed like tuning forks in the void. Every correction returned the same lesson. The sentinels were not hostile, not even defensive. They were corrective, nudging ships away from instability with cold precision, like shepherds guiding sheep from a cliff. The realization brought no comfort. It only deepened the sense of being watched by something that cared nothing for will, only for balance. Naomi stood at the viewport, staring at the silent bloom. "We are inside a monument to catastrophe," she murmured, "and the stones do not want us here." Section 5. 3 doctrines, 1 ship. The longer they drifted among the frozen petals, the heavier the silence became. Every officer carried their own interpretation of what the vault was, and soon those private convictions hardened into open camps. They gave themselves names that spread through the flotilla like call signs. Preservers believed the vault was sacred, a machine that had prevented annihilation for untold ages. Interference, they argued, would be vandalism of a structure far older and wiser than humanity. "If it has endured this long," said Commander Brahimi of the Martian cruiser Juno, "it will endure without our help. Our duty is to record, not to meddle." The liberators answered with equal fervor. They pointed to the etched coordinates on the drone and to Aya's reports of repeating patterns in the neutrino hiss. They believed a mind was inside, one that had chosen imprisonment to save the galaxy. "If there's a voice in there," Lieutenant Calder of Vigilant said, "then it has begged for release longer than our species has known fire. Or we turn our backs." And then there were the detachers, grim pragmatists who saw danger in every glowing stone. To them, the vault was a bomb with the fuse still smoldering. Better to dismantle the sentinels now, force the stored energy to finish its course, and prevent a larger catastrophe later. If we hesitate, argued Major Vey of the Martian destroyer Sirocco, we gift our descendants a trap they cannot escape. Mercy sometimes means ending what should have ended already. The command deck of Vigilant became a furnace of words. Naomi let the voices rise until heat filled the air, then struck the table with her palm. Enough. We are stewards and soldiers. Our window is narrow, and our choices are not luxuries. We will map, we will decipher, and then we will decide. No lone heroics, no reckless sabotage. We stand or fall together. Heads bowed, not in agreement, but in discipline. For the moment, order returned. Aya had not joined the argument. She sat alone at her console, peeling layer after layer of noise from the neutrino streams. Her eyes were red, her voice a rasp. "There's more," she said, projecting the cleaned waveform. A new rhythm had emerged, faint but deliberate, buried under the vault's own hum. It was too structured to be natural, too patient to be random. She leaned close to the display, almost whispering. It's a voice, not language, but timing. A name, shaped out of pause and pulse. The pattern repeated, a title bound to a function, the syllables of identity expressed in physics itself. Aya lifted her head. It calls itself the last architect. The bridge went silent again, but this time the silence was not awe, it was dread. For if an architect still lived within the vault, then humanity was not merely trespassing in a museum. They were standing inside someone's unfinished work. Section 6. Bone-deep signal. The voice was not sound. It was rhythm, a symphony built from pauses and pulses too deep for ears, but perfect for machines. Aya Chun translated with trembling precision, turning neutrino harmonics into numbers, numbers into cadence, cadence into meaning. She spoke the first sentence aloud, and everyone on Vigilant felt it settle into their bones. I am a last architect. I remain because the vault must remain. The words carried no warmth and no threat. They were function braided with intention, a mind preserved in fragments across the lattice. Aya listened harder, adjusting filters, tracing harmonics as though she were holding her breath underwater. The architect had not meant to live forever. It had meant to contain a mistake. Once, long ago, its people had tried to reshape their star, coaxing it into new brilliance. The experiment had failed. Collapse had begun. To save neighbor skies, the architect had folded the blast into an endless loop, caging fury within silence. It had tied itself into the structure as custodian, ensuring the vault would never unravel. Naomi gripped the rail, every word sinking like weight onto her chest. How long has it been trapped? Aya's translation faltered. Eons. Time is not steady inside, but longer than we can measure. Long enough that its people are dust. The next message struck harder. The vault is decaying. I am decaying. One day the fold will fail. When it does, the original fury will return to burn the sky. Release is possible, but not simple. On the tactical, the sentinel stones shifted, slow orbits aligning. Naomi knew it was no coincidence. It's asking for help. Aya nodded. A counter-echo. We must teach the fold a new rhythm, one that leads energy outward instead of back into itself. But the sentinels will resist. They're programmed to correct any deviation from the loop. The command deck filled with murmurs. Preservers shook their heads. Detachers whispered of opportunity. Liberators leaned forward, eager. Naomi silenced them with a look. She turned to Aya. If we refuse? Aya's eyes were rimmed with red. The fold will collapse eventually. Maybe in 100 years, maybe in 1,000,000. When it does, it won't be a bloom of beauty. It will be an ending. Naomi let the silence hold for a moment, then spoke to her fleet. We've been asked to act. Mercy lies not in leaving this prison untouched, nor in smashing it open blindly. Mercy is finding a way to end the suffering without ending ourselves. That is our task. No one cheered, but heads lifted, spines straightened. Humanity had been invited into the mathematics of gods, and the oath they carried, to witness with courage, demanded an answer. Section 7. The knife made of time. The probe they had launched before crossing the threshold returned without warning. One moment, the tactical screen showed empty space. The next it was there, drifting back into its cradle like a bird seeking roost. Its hull was scorched, edges warped, but the damage was patterned rather than random. Radiation had etched a design onto its plating, curves, lines, ratios, so precise they could only have been intended. Aya turned the fragments into a schematic, laying the projection across the hollow tank. The vault's architecture unfolded in wireframe, stark and terrible. It's a phase-cancellation engine, she explained, her voice low. The blast is cut into slivers, each cycle shaved down and stored. The sentinels are not weapons. They are metronomes and scalpels. They keep the rhythm perfect. If the cut falters, if enough teeth go blunt, the entire storm comes back at once. The room fell into stunned quiet. Naomi could feel the sweat on her palms. How much energy? I didn't look up. Enough to light this system 10,000 times. Enough to scour every world within dozens of light years. If the fold fails, the bloom will not be beautiful. It will be final. Major Vey, voice hard, broke the silence. Then we should end it now. Better to control the collapse on our terms than leave a loaded weapon for whoever stumbles here next. No, Calder shot back, jaw clenched. The architect is asking for help. You want to kill the one being who has kept this contained for eons. Arguments flared again, doctrine against doctrine. Naomi let it burn for a moment before she cut across the noise. Quiet. We don't get to choose easy answers. What matters is that we understand the problem. Aya adjusted the schematic, overlays shifting until a new line emerged. There is a way, a counter-echo. If we strike the fold with a precise sequence, fusion pulses, gravitic sails, we can guide the energy out. Not into open space, but into something that can hold it, bleed it safely. The vault will collapse cleanly, the energy spent, the architect freed. And if we miss the rhythm? Naomi asked. Aya's silence was answer enough. The captain looked around at her crew, at the Martians watching her with wary respect, at the Terrans whose hands twitched on controls. Then we cannot miss. We will build a shield. We will build a song. And we will give mercy shape. For the first time since entering the vault, the crew did not look away from her words. They looked toward them, hungry for direction, ready to attempt the impossible. Humanity had been handed a knife made of time. Now, they would learn how to hold it. Section 8. Counter-Echo. The fleet became a shipyard. Tugs peeled slabs from a captured asteroid, locked mid-fall toward the Dead Star. Cruisers surrendered armor plating, cutters stripped down to bare ribs, all to fashion a disposable shield that would act as altar and anchor. The fragments were welded into a vast mass driver frame, ugly but solid, a bowl meant to catch centuries of caged fury. Naomi watched the work unfold and felt a strange pride. Humanity had always built tools out of desperation, and here they were again, hammering together salvation from scrap and nerve. Gravitic sails were unfurled, their black surfaces trembling with faint light. Engineers tuned them to ride the vault's distorted winds, each adjustment delicate as surgery. Fusion skippers rehearsed the pulse sequence, burning cadence into muscle memory. Every mark had to land within microseconds. Every thrust had to carry harmony. Failure was not simply error. Failure was annihilation. Aya Chun walked the decks, translating numbers into plain speech, reminding crews why each movement mattered. Think of it as music, she said, standing in a bay thick with weld smoke. The vault has been trapped in one song for eons. We will teach a new one. Every ship is an instrument. Every captain must play their note at the right time. Some laughed nervously. Others repeated her words like scripture. The divide between Terran and Martian narrowed. Rival crews traded tools, shared manuals, swapped stories in the few hours left before execution. Naomi encouraged it. They would need unity as much as precision. The sentinels pressed closer during the preparations. They did not strike, but corrected, nudging ships from certain vectors, try to maintain the old rhythm. Vigilant resisted, plotting deviations, stacking small errors so the sentinels could not predict. Naomi called it improvisation. Aya called it humanity's edge. At last the shield was complete, a massive structure suspended before the flotilla. Ugly, fragile, yet brimming with purpose. The sails shimmered like wings waiting for wind. Fusion cores throbbed, eager to burn. Naomi stood on her bridge and opened fleet-wide comms. We have been asked to end a prison without triggering apocalypse. We do this together or not at all. When the mark comes, we commit. No hositaschen. Across channels came a chorus of affirmatives. Some solemn, some fierce. Martian accents braided with Terran, a chorus of defiance against the silence of the vault. For a moment, Naomi felt not fear, but awe. Humanity had built an answer out of scraps, and now it would dare to sing it to the stars. Section 9. The vault bites back. When the first fusion pulses lit, the vault shuddered. Petals of the frozen bloom twitched as though remembering they were once fire. For a heartbeat, the sentinels remained still, their faint glows marking boundaries in the dark. Then they divided. Each node fractured into echoes of itself, duplicates sliding across parallel orbits. One became two, two became four. Within minutes, the flotilla faced an expanding lattice of guardians, each adapting faster than Vigilant's predictive software could calculate. Naomi felt the shift instantly. "They've learned our song," she said. "They mean to drown it out." Sentinel beams reached across the void, not striking but twisting space, warping trajectories, nudging ships away from cadence points. It was interference, not violence, but just as deadly. One cutter drifted off mark, its pulse mistimed. The bloom rippled, energy snarling like a beast tugging at its leash. Aya shouted corrections, voice raw with strain. "Hold rhythm. Anchor to your counters, not the vault's lies." Naomi seized manual control, hands steady on thrusters. She introduced deliberate imperfections, tiny missteps no algorithm would predict. Vigilant swayed like a dancer offbeat, forcing the sentinels to misjudge. "Stack variants," she told her pilots. "Human chaos is our shield." The fleet followed her lead. Cruisers stuttered thrusts, cutters bent arcs into spirals. The sentinels faltered, their adjustments chasing patterns that no machine could anticipate. Still, the pressure mounted. One Martian cruiser took a beam full across its hull, plating shearing away in molten ribbons. Its crew held station regardless, riding pain like duty. Naomi opened fleet-wide comms. "Every mark matters. Every breath matters. Do not let the vault erase us." Her voice carried not just command, but conviction, and it steadied hands across the flotilla. Fusion pulses thumped in practiced rhythm, sails straining against warped tides. The shield glowed faintly, already catching the first dribbles of redirected energy. It shook but held. Humanity's counter-echo was working, but only just. Aya glanced at Naomi, sweat streaking her face. "If we lose cadence now, the fold snaps back." Naomi's reply was quiet steel. "Then we do not lose." Beyond the viewport, sentinels split again, the vault fighting to preserve its endless silence. Humanity answered with noise, with will, with unpredictability, with every ounce of defiance their species had ever carried. The battle was not of weapons, but of rhythm, and in rhythm, humans had always known how to improvise. Section 10. Unspooling the Star. The cadence deepened until it was no longer just soundless pulses, but a heartbeat that every crew felt in their chests. Fusion cores fired in measured intervals, sails flexed like lungs catching breath, and the vault itself began to sway. The frozen balloon shivered, petals of light softening at the edges. For the first time in eons, the star remembered how to move. Energy bled outward, threads of brilliance drawn toward the shield the flotilla had built. The great structure rattled under the flood, its slabs glowing from dull red to white, metal groaning like a mountain forced to bend. Yet it held. Each fragment, welded in haste, now bore the weight of centuries, and still the shield stood. Naomi watched the readings climb and refused to blink. "Hold the bowl steady," she ordered. "Drink it all." The sentinels hesitated. Some peeled away from their harassment to align with the new rhythm, as though recognizing competence. Others fought harder, trying to drag the cadence back into silence. Vigilant rode the storm's edge, Naomi adjusting by instinct, stacking human flaws into the beat. "They cannot predict us," she said under her breath. "That is our weapon." Aya's voice cut through the bridge, hoarse but certain. "It's working. The fold is loosening." She pointed to the projection where loops of trapped energy uncoiled like threads being tugged free from a knot. Each pulse unwound more of the prison. Each sail adjustment coaxed the fury into their waiting vessel. A cutter slipped, thrusters stalling for an instant too long. The bloom snarled, light cracking like a whip. Naomi's jaw tightened. "Compensate." Two Martian cruisers surged forward, overburning engines to patch the rhythm. They staggered into place, hulls shrieking under the strain, but they restored the beat. Aya whispered, "They saved us," and marked their sacrifice on her console like a vow. The shield grew brighter, a newborn sun swallowing the rage of an ancient one. The strain was immense. Hulls trembled, consoles sparked, but the music held. Naomi stared at the unfolding bloom, its petals now flowing outward, no longer frozen sculpture, but a river of light finding release. For the first time, she felt the vault accept their intrusion, not as vandals, but as collaborators. The architect's unseen hand seemed to steady the count, its voice braided faintly into their rhythm. Humanity was no longer alone in the song. Together, they were unspooling a star, guiding destruction into mercy. Section 11. The Architect's Last Word. The voice returned, stronger now, braided through the cadence like a harmony no human throat could shape. It pulsed through neutrinos, through magnetic eddies, through the very hulls of their ships. The crews did not hear it so much as feel it, a warmth humming against bone. Aya translated with shaking hands, though much of it needed no words. Containment without release becomes cruelty. Perfection without mercy is failure. Learn this. The last architect was unraveling. It admitted as much in its rhythm, confessing that its memory had thinned, its identity stretched thin across machines that had endured too long. It did not plead for survival. It offered a principle, the one truth it had purchased with endless imprisonment. Build cages only if you also build exits. Protect the living without condemning them to silence. On Vigilant's bridge, the silence among the crew was reverent. Even the detachers who had argued for destruction bowed their heads. Naomi closed her eyes, absorbing every pulse as if it were scripture. Then she spoke, voice steady to carry the record. "We are witnesses. We accept your principle. We will carry it forward." The architect's cadence faltered, each beat weaker than the last. Yet in its dying rhythm, it gave one last gift. Ratios and equations, subtle corrections that would allow humanity to refine the counter-echo, to ensure the vault collapsed cleanly. Aya scribbled furiously, translating the mathematics into navigational commands. "It's teaching us how to end this without losing everything," she said. The shield shook as another surge of energy poured into it. Slabs glowed nearly white. Heat bleeding into space, but the structure endured. The flotilla rode the storm, singing their human chaos into the void. The architect's voice thinned into whispers, then into silence. But it did not feel like death. It felt like release, like a lantern snuffed, not by the wind, but by dawn. Naomi leaned on the rail, throat tight. "We carry your name," she whispered, "and we build with mercy." She let the words be recorded across all channels, a promise written into history. No one objected. Not even the most hardened skeptic could deny the weight of what they had witnessed. Aya sat back, eyes glistening. "Remember this moment," she said softly. "It may be the last lesson left to us from civilization we'll never meet." The bloom pulsed once more, then sagged, the fold loosening fully at last. The architect was gone. In its absence, only humanity remained to finish what had been started. Section 12. After the bloom. The vault's collapse was not an explosion, but an exhale. The frozen petals of the bloom unfurled at last, their long-denied motion flowing outward in rivers of light. The shield groaned under the torrent, metal shrieking as centuries of caged fury poured into it. But it held. Slabs burned away, fragments spiraled into dust. Yet the structure absorbed enough to bleed the storm harmlessly into the dark. When the last thread of energy unraveled, silence fell. Where once there had been a monument of catastrophe, now there was only a newborn nebula, radiant and calm. The flotilla drifted, battered but alive. Hulls scarred, crews exhausted, but every ship still burning steady. Naomi stood at Vigilant's viewport and felt her breath catch. They had unspooled a star and survived. Humanity had entered a vault that was never meant to be opened and had left not as thieves, but as stewards. The last architect was gone, but its principle remained, etched into every heart that had heard its final words. In the debrief chamber, Naomi recorded the doctrine that would leave this system with them. "We will contain what threatens, but we will not enshrine suffering. We will build exits into every cage." We name this the Echo Doctrine, and we carry it not as burden, but as promise. The message was transmitted to Earth, to Mars, to every listening station in range. No government owned it. No faction could hoard it. It belonged to humanity entire. Aya Chun added the final data to the transmission. Ratios, corrections, harmonics gifted by the architect. She ended her report with one simple line. "Mercy is an engineering requirement." Engineers across the fleet murmured the phrase as though it had been theirs all along. Losses were counted. Names were read. The Martian cruiser that had burned itself to hold rhythm was gone, but its sacrifice had given humanity the beat it needed. In the mess halls, crews raised silent toasts. No one cheered. They honored with quiet instead. Naomi returned to the bridge, watching the nebula's glow fade as distance grew. Ahead, the stars waited, unchanged, unyielding, listening. She thought of the architect's lantern, extinguished not in defeat, but in fulfillment, and felt the weight of inheritance. Humanity had been tested not with war, but with responsibility, and for once, they had chosen mercy without weakness. "Set course for home," she said. Engines flared. The flotilla turned from the echoing vault, leaving behind light and memory. And in the silence that followed, Naomi allowed herself the rarest of luxuries, hope. Please do press that like button if you have enjoyed this story, and also please do subscribe and hit the bell icon to listen to more stories like this one. That would mean a real lot to me. Now go ahead and listen to your next story here.